seems a lot to me. So when you're saying like you went from team to team and like kind of aligned with the best practices, do you have a predefined checklist yourself, or you kind of like mentorly review where they're at? I mean, is it a fuzzy assessment, or do you have like a hardboard standard list of assessment? And
so we have a checklist. And at Excello, we have a list of things that every project should be doing, whether it's Java, whether it's Python, or .NET, which are the three that we monitor best practices. We also monitor best practices in other areas like Agile or business analysis. But what I do is I go out on the .NET projects and I will go through that. What we've been doing is rating them on a red, yellow, green basis. And a lot of times what will happen out of that is a conversation with the client and say, hey, you're red in automated testing. The reason we have assessed that this project is red is because the tests, there are no tests, or the tests are below 40% coverage, or any of the other metrics. And so a lot of the conversations come out of that with the client. Some clients say, not interested, and some will say, well, let's raise this, let's do something about it, let's change it. So that's the basic process. So the 4 areas that I focus on are automated builds and deployments, automated testing, usually unit testing, but integration or acceptance testing as well. Continuous integration, continuous deployment, and code review.
So obviously there's standard ways of doing that. Obviously there's lots of different ways to do, say, automated builds. Are there standard ones that you typically use?
Not standard ones.
So even
it's situational.
I mean, obviously with the different languages and different environments, it's going to be different. But even say in the .NET world, you still go across the.
So it's, as I said, it's situational. So a lot of teams, I will go in and say MS Build, because MS Build is the Microsoft way. There's Pisaki, which is the PowerShell make fusion. And so I'll work with teams that are doing it that way. I've been on teams where they do all their build stuff in Rake or Gradle or some other thing. But I pretty much take the team where they are because they're in a client context. But typically I will say MS Build for most teams, because most teams are trying to do things the Microsoft way, Visual Studio way, TFS way, and that just feels natural. But PowerShell for those who want to do it new and better. TeamCity. A lot of what I write in my book is what I experience and have experienced in terms of sitting down with teams and trying to do something pragmatic, going from where they are to where they need to be or want to be. Yeah.
You've ever been in, I guess, a situation where, like, I guess, I don't have a lot of myself with the Team Foundation server, so we're actually having like assignments for the different people on the team, like time of completion when they check it in, and it automatically goes against the code review. Well, I mean, it seems to be a lot there, and I've like read about it and I've heard about it, but I never really come across anybody that really kind of has implemented it and embraced all the complete functionality that's available to it.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like it would be a way to go, but I don't. You know what I mean? It's
Sure. So I draw the analogy. It's like pulling a plant up to see how the roots are growing. Sometimes too much inspection really doesn't help you get anywhere. So a lot of the Microsoft TFS model is this command, control, inspect type of thing. And what I usually see teams is trying to figure out how to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And I was actually on a project where they had sort of this whole CMM layer above the project, and below the project were the developers using Git. And so they were just checking stuff in and out of Git all day long, and they would run the project for 7 months, and at the end, they would say, okay, let's put it into version control, and everybody was happy with that, right? Because as far as management was concerned, having it checked in once at the very end of the project was delivery, right? And the developers, they needed something. So oftentimes I will find that those two things are at odds with each other. The idea to be able to inspect and control things. I often find that the TFS tools come out of a lot of QA management oversight perspectives. And it's not inherently bad. It's just oftentimes teams are expected to deliver at higher levels of efficiency. And this stuff just starts getting in the way. And so they start figuring out how to either undermine it or circumvent it. And I think that's one of the reasons why it doesn't get adopted, is because the first thing the team says, if we could only get rid of all of this, we would be able to get more done. That's just been my experience. It's usually a battle royale between the two. Yeah.
I haven't used Scrum ever since I started working. How exactly do you normally, use? How did you start using Scrum, and how efficient is it for you?
Oh, I started using Scrum before it was really called Scrum. I worked on a project that was run by Microsoft Consulting Services. I forget what they called it, but it was one of those iterative incremental spiral projects. And Scrum's really kind of evolved out of a lot of that type of thinking in the 90s and that type of thing. And the Agile Manifesto was really sort of a way to say, let's stay more values and principle oriented. But my experience with software development is that some things help get software built, and some things managers want in place so that they can have systems under control. And so the systems engineering are like, let's have things under control, and the other is let's get software built. And I find that Scrum is, generally speaking, a good marriage of those two concepts. You get some level of managerial control and visibility and predictability, but you're also focusing on delivering software. You get planning, so things aren't done without consideration, but you time box it for only a couple of hours in a 2-week period, that type of thing. So these give a nice balance between process and agility, if you will. And so I find that most software teams, when you do coaching and you lead Scrum Master, that the teams get effective at building software from where they were to higher rates of delivery and more predictability, which has been my experience. Other people say things that oppose that because they're not getting what they want from Scrum. Oftentimes that they're not doing it right, or they're making some compromise in that. I think my experience is that Scrum grew up and Agile grew up around me as I was doing software development. And from others that came into software engineering and they found it was already there and established. So I remember software where it was done a different way. And I used to like to draw analogies. And one of them was, people would build software like it was the Golden Gate Bridge. We are going to build this thing as a testament to all humankind for the rest of, and building software doesn't work that way. You work on a software project, and almost everybody says, if I had it to do all over again, I'd do it differently, right? People who built the Empire State Building did not want to tear it down the next day. Right? They were proud of what they built. software engineers invariably, after it's shipped, they're like, I'd rewrite the whole damn thing, right? And that's just a completely different thing. I'm like, that's just such a strange difference. So I experienced that for a long time before I found Agile, Scrum, and I was like, wait, we'll build it for a couple of weeks, and then we'll build a way to be able to redesign it and re-implement it without losing all this functionality by doing something like building automated tests around it. And then we can redesign it by making sure all the tests still pass. And that created this idea of liberating the team to say, hey, if we think it should be rewritten, we'll just rewrite it, and we'll do it in a way that's responsible and reasonable and rational. And we will come to the end of this project saying, hey, this is something we're really proud of. Let's not tear it down. And so having experienced both ends of that, I think it makes it easy for me to just say, we want to start off with something that is agile small a, but whatever that might be. Does that answer your question?
So when you do code walkthroughs, I haven't heard about that in a long time. So you do literally line by line walkthroughs with the code?
I have not done a line by line in a long, long time. What I will typically do is there's group code reviews, peer code reviews, and pair programming. Those are the three things that I talk about. When I talk about group code reviews, I'm thinking learning. And so what I'll typically do is if I'm working on a team, I'll say, let's do a code review. Come everybody see what crappy code I've written. And we will all spend time learning about what not to do from Steve and Richie, right?